Hello, welcome to this video where I cover the effects of patch 12.6 on the teams that are still left in the playoffs in their respective region, in the four major regions. As we look at MSI, a little distant from here, I don't know if MSI is being played on like patch 12.7, 12.8. I highly doubt it's 12.6. It does matter to the LCS. I think the LCS are playing playoffs on patch 12.6. So if that is the case, this has value for the LCS playoffs for sure. And that's why there's so many LCS teams on here, because they are just getting into playoffs now, where a lot of the LCK are in finals. There's only two teams left, both teams mentioned here. LPL are Final Four teams, and I think all four teams are mentioned here. So, and a couple LEC teams. LEC wasn't overly affected by this patch. But if you haven't watched one of these videos before, because not many people watch this video that I put up, because I feel like it's something more interesting to a very niche amount of people. Like, how does the patch actually affect things? And I mean, obviously, buffing a champion does not make it, viable. Nerfing it doesn't take it completely out of rotation for these players into their champion pools. But it's nice to see, oh, well, now they have an extra option maybe, or, oh, well, that's out as a choice. So, buffs. There were a few buffs this patch, a couple nerfs, two significant nerfs, which that's why there's teams listed here, and question marks. Teams are affected in both ways. How is this going to play out? I think I can get a good idea of how it's going to play out for a couple of those teams, but overall, these teams have to maybe change the way they're drafting and things of that nature. So yeah, buffs. T1 benefits from the Azir buff. So does 100 Thieves to a degree, which they're over here. But we'll get to that in a second. So T1 benefits from the Azir buff. Faker likes using Azir. A lot of players like using Azir. This is going to become viable for many, many players to some degree in their champion pools, but Faker uses it the most. I determined this, obviously. I would imagine most pro players play these champions in their respective role, so they have a general idea. But I only list a team here if it was one of the top 3 champions that player used in the instance of a buff in last season, because obviously if Azir's getting buffed now, it hasn't been viable maybe for all spring split. And I will take into account this spring for some people, because maybe you did play a champion regardless of the buff. And that even shows more of a confidence in using that champion, and now they're even more likely to use it. But also you have to look at last year. Did they use it when it was viable? And Faker used it a lot. A lot of players used Azir. Jax for RNG. Bin loves using Jax. Not a lot of people love using Jax. I think Jax was maybe played once in the LEC this spring and twice in the LCS. Very fringe champion. I think 24 of the 26 times I saw it used in spring were against Camille or something, which obviously makes sense. I mean, Camille Jax is a matchup. And Bin likes leaning on it. Bin is known for using the Jax in international play. And honest to God, I would be afraid of Bin's Jax if they make it to MSI. In JDG, Kanavi likes using Nidalee. Several players like using Nidalee. More of an Eastern region champion. The Western regions, the LCS and LPL, I don't think it's been touched. LCS, LEC. I think it's only been touched maybe once by the LCS this split. JDG benefits from the Nidalee buff. Teams hurt by nerfs. Nerfs were big. 2 significant nerfs to Hecarim and Tryndamere. C9 and FlyQuest affected the most. They leaned on those champions. Everybody picked Hecarim to some degree, but I mean, C9 really relied on the Hecarim. FlyQuest really relies on Tryndamere, and both teams rely on both champions. But I could see why FlyQuest relied on Tryndamere so much. Kumo is not that good, so Malphite duty now. Victory 5 and top. Both liked using the Hecarim more so than anybody else, more so than JDG and RNG rely on the Hecarim. So the Hecarim's out for them. They're going to have to go elsewhere. And Golden Guardians and EG, well, actually Golden Guardians liked using Hecarim too. Sorry, those 3 teams are together. EG didn't really use the Hecarim much, but really relied on the Tryndamere for impact. So EG is going to have to look elsewhere. Impact, obviously, is a veteran. He's played a lot of different champions. He shouldn't be too affected by it. I imagine Golden Guardians won't be affected that much by the Hecarim ban. I mean, a Hecarim nerf. Pride Stalker isn't really even a Hecarim player. But those teams affected by the nerfs, they're going to have to look elsewhere. Maybe their drafts get a little spicy. Or, when in doubt, they pick the champions anyways. And at least in Hecarim's case, his late game is going to stink now. So, mixed opinions. Well, not mixed opinions, but mixed impact. We'll go with the two clear teams first. 100 Thieves clearly affected in a very questionable way. Tryndamere taken out of Sunday's champion pool, and Azir is in Abidage's. Abidage liked using Azir last season a lot. I imagine the Azir will be picked by Abidage. And then Gen G. Doran liked using Tryndamere. That is kind of scary because Doran is, coin flip in my opinion. And going against T1, T1 is buffed. Gen G, big question mark. How is that going to fare? Well, obviously this doesn't affect this weekend. Sorry. This doesn't affect this weekend for the LCK. It only affects the LCS. But depending on who goes internationally, I guess Gen G isn't as affected, but T1 is really going to benefit from a Azir buff internationally. Nidalee, Peanut likes using Nidalee. Peanut is a solid Nidalee player, so that helps them. And then we got some fringe buffs to Darius and Rengar that help G2 and TL a bit. So both teams lose the Tryndamere in top lane, but both top laners get a pocket pick placed back into their champion pool. Broken Blade has picked Darius, I think, 3 times over the last 2 years. And in this case, this split, I believe, it is tied for a second most played champion because he uses so many different champions. Like Action was used 6 times, I think. And then 6 or 7 champions used twice, and Darius was one of them. So Broken Blade might look at the Darius come international play if G2 somehow run the table and upset a few teams. And in the case of TL, G2 are still in the playoffs. Vitality versus G2, I believe, and then the winner plays Misfits, I think, and it's Fnatic Rogue on the other side. If I haven't looked at the LEC playoff picture for a minute here, so if I'm wrong and G2's out, so it doesn't really matter. TL, Bwipo likes using Rengar. He is the only Rengar player in pro play, and the Rengar, is a buff. He's been reworked. And a solo lane Rengar might be a thing. We'll see. I don't know. For Bwipo does some crazy stuff. And to play against Summit, he's going to have to play some crazy stuff in the playoffs. So if they're on 12.6 like I think they are, it's going to impact them in a significant way. So TL, mixed reviews. G2, mixed reviews. But that's pretty much it. This is how 12.6 affects pro play. As we look at MSI for 3 of the 4 major regions, and I believe the LCS playoffs. Obviously, these champions might be buffed or nerfed between now and MSI anyways, and it's irrelevant, but it's nice to look at and, look at players' champion pools, what they may have played in the past, and what may be viable for them now, and how that affects things going forward. So, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. If you do want to comment on how you think these champions may affect pro play, comment down below, and thanks for watching.